Hi, I'm Jeff Dixon. Welcome to a new series entitled Urban Legends. That's right. Today we're going to talk about a doll in a sailor suit that has garnered a reputation of being creepy and destructive. The doll's name is Robert the Doll. That's right, Robert the Doll. Maybe you've heard of him. If you're ever in Key West, Florida, you don't want to mess with Robert the Doll. If you value your sanity or even your life, according to some. In a town where ghosts are about as common as cruise ships, at least according to local legend, Robert sits behind the glass at the Fort East Martello Museum. He's wearing a cute little sailor suit, a faded, almost human-like face, and the kind of presence that makes even skeptics check over their shoulders when they walk away, because I'll be real honest with you, I've seen this doll. He's creepy. The story goes like this. In 1904, a boy named Robert Eugene Otto was given a handmade doll, allegedly by a servant with a bone to pick with the family. Whether the story about the servant is true or just local gossip, nobody really knows, but here's what is certain. That little boy adorned the doll, or he adored the doll, and then dressed up the doll like a sailor and named the doll Robert after himself. The two were inseparable. The doll became the boy's lifelong friend. The neighbors swore they saw the doll move from window to window when no one was home at the house. And they began making comments about that. It's rumored that Gene's parents heard whispering in the night and realized it wasn't their child, but it was the doll speaking. See, when things went wrong, a smashed vase, a toppled chair, Gene, as a kid, would turn and blame it on Robert with the phrase, Robert did it. Gene grew up and eventually inherited his childhood home, with Robert still as one of his possessions. But the doll's reputation only became more sinister. Visitors to the house claimed that they saw Robert blink, shift his gaze, or even change his expression. What people really remember is that they would probably term as an unhealthy relationship between the boy and this doll. He took it with him everywhere. He talked about it first person if it wasn't a doll at all. It was almost as if Robert the doll was alive, at least to this boy now grown up. Today, Robert still holds court in the museum that I mentioned. The rules are strict. If you want to take a photo of Robert, the museum curators make you ask Robert for permission out loud. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I've seen people do it. I didn't take a picture of it because, well, I didn't want to get caught in the voodoo of the moment. But listen to people actually ask, can they take a picture of Robert? And to say out loud to a doll behind a glass case, can I take a picture of you? A little bit crazy, but they're hedging their bets. The museum has a wall of apology letters from visitors who ignored this rule, took a picture, and then found themselves plagued by bad luck, car accidents, broken bones, divorces, job losses. Some write begging the doll to lift the curse, promising never to doubt him again. If you're thinking this is all local legend and tourist bait, you're not alone. But even hardened skeptics say there's something about Robert. Maybe it's the way his lifeless eyes seem to follow you, or that faint smirk that seems to get bigger if you stare into the face of the doll too long. It's weird, but the message is clear. Don't mess with Robert. Don't taunt him, and certainly don't take his photo without asking. That is the urban legend of Robert the doll. Now, Robert's story has inspired horror movies and urban legends galore. But unlike his fictional counterparts, Robert is very real. Robert the doll has survived hurricanes, changing owners, and more than a century of history, and along the way continued to rack up spooky occurrence after spooky occurrence. And so, next time you're in Key West, take a trip to the museum. Look him in the eye if you dare. Just remember to be polite and always ask before you snap a photo. Because if not, you might discover that the urban legend of Robert the Doll just might be more real than you want it to be, if you believe in that sort of thing. That's the story of Robert the Doll. In our next episode, we're going to look at some of the spiritual lessons that we can learn from the urban legend of Robert the Doll, put it under the microscope just a little bit, and think of it in some God terms that will help us come to grips with not just Robert the Doll, but urban legends in general, and hopefully help us as we figure out how to navigate this weird, crazy thing called life itself. Remember, urban legends don't have to become your legacy if you don't want them to. I look forward to joining you next time.